Welcome back to another episode of the Challenge Insiders, where we recap everything the Challenge All Stars. And today we're talking about episode 6. And I kind of feel like Janae in this situation, where I've got an elimination record of 2-7, and I have to call someone into the arena to come and help me out. And who do I bring in? I bring in the big guns. I bring in the people who've got all the experience, and Chantal and Drew. For those who don't know, Drew is also known as Angelcake on YouTube, and I feel like you guys are the ones that I really will rely on to break everything down for me in this episode and to fill in the blanks for me as well. Drew, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for that great introduction.
And Chantal, how are you doing today?
I mean, I'm always excited to talk about the challenge. The Challenge All-Stars just never lets me down. I'm always like smiley facing. This one was probably the funniest episode out of them all so far. And I'm like, I rewound some parts just like watching it because it was just so entertaining. So loved it. Can't wait to talk about it. And I want to hear what you guys thought of this episode too.
Yeah, 100%. I've got a lot of opinions about it. There's things I loved about it, as usual. There's things I didn't like about it. And Drew, just to give you a little bit of I know Chantal always gives me that face. Just to give you a little bit of a background in regards to why I say that is that I am a new school fan. I'm someone who only came into watching the challenge around Final Reckoning, and then I went back to go and watch it from Fresh Meats 2 until the recent one. So a lot of the players I'm kind of getting to know as I'm watching the season for the first time. So Chantal's always sort of filled me in on the blanks and the things that I didn't know. But because I'm a new school fan, I like a lot of new school play. I love the strategy. I love to see people having to show their cards and things like that. So obviously in this episode, there's a few things that happens in regards to people kind of like playing themselves into an elimination that I'm never a fan of personally. But, outside of that, there's a lot of likable people on this season.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'm with Chantal on this, is that like this is my favorite episode out of all the episodes so far. This one had everything, and I loved it from the beginning to the very end, and then to the sneak peek, which like blew my mind with everything that TJ and everything was like thrown at us. I'm so sad that it's only 9 episodes because we're already on the 7th one, going into the 7th one. This is the 6th one, and this one is like the best one. So it's like there's only so much you can do to get even better, and we're only so much further to the end, which makes me sad.
I know. I mean, but it does leave us wanting more. So that's kind of what's exciting about it, is that like, even though like I would love it to be like 21 episodes like the regular season, but like with this and only being 9, I'm kind of like, well, they're going to make another one really quickly, and I'm going to get my fix back again. So I want it longer, absolutely, just like you, but I'm happy that it's shorter so I can really be craving to have more episodes. And it's also really allowed me to want to go back and rewatch some seasons. So I've actually also started again from Fresh Meat 2. And I watched The Island, then I watched Fresh Meat 2, and right now I'm still watching Battle of the Exes 2. And so like, it's just, I don't know, I'm just going back, nostalgia lane. I love it. It's so fun.
Yeah, and I mean, let's not forget, if they didn't sort of shorten this season, then most likely we wouldn't have ended up seeing a lot of our favorite people, or a lot of the favorite people for people who've watched the challenge for a long time actually commit and come back to do the show, because this allowed them to only shoot the whole show over, I think, a 2-week period. So it's pretty impressive what they've been able to push into the show in such a small amount of time. So let's get into the actual episode. So we do see everybody coming back to the house after that arena, and the previous episode was my favorite episode of the season so far, because I absolutely love the twist that was thrown on people there. They weren't fully prepared going into the arena, that it's also going to have to be a girl going down into the elimination, and then obviously with being able to vote someone else down there, and then they get to call someone down. I love that format. So the one thing I am sad about so far in this season is the fact that we're not going to see that format play out for quite a long time in this season, because we find out there's only one more arena left after this where someone can get called down. And I love this twist, and I would love to see them take this twist and actually bring that into the proper show at the moment, because I feel like it will add some much needed chaos to what is happening, because the skull twist for me has become a bit boring and predictable at this stage.
Yeah, I actually thought that they were going to actually have like men and women eliminations, like double eliminations this whole season, because there was 22 people coming in, 9 episodes. And that's also like a throwback. If we remember Cutthroat season 20, they always had like men and women going down together, having a double elimination. So I get that they were trying to do the twist, but yeah, it's kind of like a gut punch to have like a format for so long, then switch it up, and then switch it up, and then have one more elimination. And it's like, we don't even get to like breathe in it almost. It's just like, here we go, and then here we go, and then now let's go. And first of all, it's like one more elimination and then we're at the finals. It's like, how many people are left in this game? Like, there's still so many people.
So I'm wondering what they're going to do with the final, though. I guess it's going to be a 2-part final. It would be my guess, and there'll be maybe a purge in the first episode of the 2. So I am curious how they're going to resolve that issue, but I would have preferred maybe having another week or 2 with this new twist to see them start playing with this twist and then go to the final. So maybe 2 more episodes I would allow them to have without it being too much overkill.
Yeah. So we do see Janae and Katie here in the room here in the beginning of the episode talking to each other about this new twist. And, Janae is sort of joking like I did in the beginning of this podcast, like I've got the 2 to 7 elimination record. So, I can use that to sell me not going down there, not getting voted down, because if I get voted down, I can take a very capable guy to come down and help me. And Katie is sort of saying the same thing. She says that she's more self-aware than a lot of other people in the challenge. Go figure, a lot of challenge people are not self-aware. Is busy. I mean, come on. Anyway, so she's more self-aware than most, and she knows that she's not the best in everything, but she thinks that this is something that's going to help her in the game not go down. Obviously, she's not taking into consideration that she might go up in a challenge that she's not that great at, and she will be her own worst enemy and volunteering herself to go down there. But her thinking and Janae's thinking is really good at this stage, and that's why I would love to see this twist come back in another season, because I feel like we didn't see enough of it in this season.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I'm totally down with this twist. I do like that everything that they're doing with this season is reminding me of previous seasons where, like, you don't really know what's going on. You don't really know what's happening. He switches up, he changes it up all the time. And I love that Jemmy is kind of like recognizing that, like, oh, TJ's up to his old tricks again. Like, it's kind of the old TJ that we used to really love. He loved teasing them. He loved making them do shitty things. He loved, changing things up. And so I totally agree. I really wish that we were watching this twist for longer, because I love seeing the reverse strategy of it. I love that, like, okay, it's like, if I don't win, well, like, we even see in what's her name, Kellyanne. She talks about in the challenge, she's like, well, if I'm going to lose, I want to lose with the other captain being Darrell, because if I have to go in there, I want to be going in there with him. So I'm like, okay, that's good. New strategy developed. And then it's like, okay, but then also maybe not getting thrown in there by the mob because they don't want me to choose them. That's a second great strategy that gets to be developed. And so, like you, I didn't particularly enjoy the fact that Katie kind of took the whole strategy out and sucked the air out of the room for that part of the deliberation, but I still thought it was a really great episode. I didn't mind how everything shook out in the end.
Well, I also think that there's also a strategy on if you want to throw yourself in to the elimination. Because, I mean, even Katie was like, do I pick somebody who's a friend that we might have chemistry with? I'm then jeopardizing a friend's ability to win and get $500,000. Or even when she was like, I want to throw myself in, and everybody was like, well, the guys would have to be your partner and you're going to have to pick one of them. Is everyone else okay with Katie throwing herself in? So there's a lot going at play, but a lot of people, I think, because this was the first week with the twist, was just like, sure. I mean, she can only pick one of us. So, that's when Darrell was like, just don't pick me. Like, I'll let you go down there. Just don't pick me.
Yeah, I've got a sore back. At the moment for carrying all of my teammates at the moment, so I can't do it. But we also see here early in this episode that Anissa and Leterian seems to be getting closer and closer. So Leterian is the first person in the kitchen there talking to Anissa and sort of comforting her and saying, hey, you did a good job in that elimination. Obviously, Anissa busted up her hands a little bit. She talks about the fact that she's been doing this now for 14 years. So she's got a lot of pressure on her to prove herself, and she just wants the opportunity to get to a final so that she finally can try and win one of these games. And we see Leterian and Anissa together in the room there, and there was a real funny moment there with Leterian saying, listen, is Gisela and Elton in the bathroom because I want to go brush my teeth. Clearly, he wants to make up with her, and he hasn't brushed his teeth yet. And Anissa is saying, go brush your teeth, don't worry about it. And she's really pushing him to go and do it in any case. So it was such a funny scene.
I was totally like, oh man, because like I noticed this scene in the preview for the next episode, for this episode. And so I was like, okay, like I want to see a little bit of like romance for Anissa, we love our hookups. And then when I saw it happen, I'm like, oh no, if it happens now, that means that one of them are probably going home. I'm like, damn it. Like I wanted to see this play out for a little bit longer. But yeah, I was happy for the little flirt mance that was happening, calling him her little teddy bear or whatever. And I don't know, it was cute. I thought was a nice little coupling.
Yeah, I think with the challenge, especially with the 45 minutes that they allot for the episodes, they kind of try to like bring in like some screen time to players that may not have gotten a lot of screen time, and then it kind of like plays into the predictability of the game. And like watching the challenge so much in a row and watching so many of them, I was like sitting there, like, okay, Jonna got so much screen time. This was like triple the screen time that she's gotten through the whole season. So I'm like worried, is she going to be going into the elimination? She's talking to Katie. But Katie voted herself in one other time, and then the lifesaver was used to save her. So maybe she won't go in, but maybe Jonna will. And then Leterian and Anissa just won. So maybe if she gets thrown in, I don't know. It's like there's like 4 now people going through my mind of like who's going to be going into the elimination, and it's like we know like at least one of them has to be going into the elimination.
100%.
If not more. So it's like, okay, but you can't shut that part off in your brain when you're like watching it, like, so much of it. You're like, okay, who's going in? You're taking confessional like menus and data and everything. You're like, okay, I just can't stop it. It's like watching a murder mystery. It's like I have to figure this out before the ending.
Of course, me too. I podcast with some friends about the challenge, and I'm like, oh yeah, as soon as I saw this happen, this is what I thought that so and so was going to go in, and this is what was going to happen. They're like, oh, you don't just enjoy the show anymore, and I'm like, I can't enjoy it just normally anymore. This is the way I enjoy it now. It's like being able to be the detective, as you're saying. So I'm totally with you there.
But I do agree with what you said there, that there were probably about 4 people there at one point that could have gone in. So I did feel like this specific episode, they did a better job at masking it. Yes, it was still about, say, 3 or 4 people potentially that was going to go down there. But in some of the previous episodes, myself and Chantal were on here talking on the podcast, and we knew immediately, oh, okay, Elton's going in because of this. Oh, yeah, this person's going in because of this. So I feel like they definitely did a little bit better of a job. And I feel like even with the Leterian side of it, we've been getting a lot of confessionals from Leterian throughout the whole season. So with him, it was a little bit of a blind side. I should have seen it coming because of who he is as a person and him just wanting to step up there and, saying, I am a badass, and he's got this old school mentality. I should have seen it coming. But Leterian still, for me, it was a bit of a surprise that he would throw himself in, because he's been sitting pretty this whole season. He's been doing extremely well. He seems to be socially quite in there, and he seems to be doing physically really well. And, even like he said at the end of the episode here when he leaves, that a lot of men are probably now really happy about the fact that he's not still in the house, because him going up against Mark, I didn't even think he had a chance, to be honest with you, because Mark is such a beast, and he ends up winning the first part of the end there with the elimination. So hats off to him. So I was a little bit surprised on that front, and I do feel like the producers, they did a little bit of a better job compared to what they've done in previous episodes. But I agree with you guys. I look at it exactly the same. I also analyze the edit. Chantal has heard me say so many times, I feel like certain people are running the game because they're getting a lot of confessionals, and we're seeing the game from their perspective quite a lot. And who knows if it's going to turn out that way. But I do want to move into the challenge before we get back into that elimination part towards the end of the episode. We go into the challenge, and the challenge is called Escape the Room. And we've got 4 teams of 4 that's going to do this. And it's a new challenge that we haven't seen so far on the challenge, and it's one of the things that I really give the challenge All-Stars 10 out of 10 in creativity compared to some of the recent challenge seasons that we've seen. It's such a breath of fresh air, and I don't know why they're doing things this way and why it's so much better, but I'm loving the challenges so far this season.
What do you want? You don't want 3 hull brawls in a row? What do you mean?
You don't want them flying drones for like half a second and then them having to just walk out the cave? Like... Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. But yeah, this daily challenge is one of my favorites. I think it's so simple. It's just them trying to solve a puzzle in a crate suspended over water before trapdoors open. And the most people that can solve that wins. It's like that's the elevator pitch. And then you just like, okay, let's just make it. Let's just do it. And it's like it turns out so well. And the reactions of everybody was so funny. Darrell just like standing there like a statue when he's trying to help Kellyanne. And then she just falls right through, and he's just like, oh my gosh, I'm done. Like, it was amazing. I just loved it so much.
Just a quick question here, guys. Did anybody sort of think that Derek was going to hurt himself here? Because I saw the previews with Derek walking with a bandage and the blood on his head. And going into it, I was thinking someone's going to bang their head here, because it looks super dangerous, to be honest. If you're standing over the puzzle board and you don't see it coming, easily someone could have gotten hurt real bad here. Love the challenge, but it looks a little bit on the dangerous side.
I don't think I saw the preview for me to have remembered that. And so I wasn't expecting anybody to get like seriously hurt. I did think though it was really awkward how it was going to happen. I thought maybe people's arms might get hit or something like that, or maybe like a nose if it's a little bit big. But no, I never saw the preview with Derek, so I wasn't scared for him.
I actually, in the mid-season trailer breakdown that I did in the Tiny Table Talk last week, I was like, if it's like a costume party, because I just was like, that seems like way too overdone. I was like, how did he hit his head? Did he like try to climb the column again and fall off? Like, there's no way he would have gotten that hurt. But I do remember the aftermath. Yeah, exactly. It's just like in the aftermath where Darrell says that he, at one point, he was just like holding inside, like he was holding his nose. He was holding close to his body because he just didn't want to fall with his hands out. And I was like, that makes sense. Like, you don't want to hurt anything going down. But I mean, Katie fell pretty well, but nobody's talking about Jemmy. Like, she just falls and she fell really hard. And then they just blew past that. I was like, wow, like she went hard to the water.
Maybe she didn't complain about it.
Yeah, maybe.
No, I don't think so. But maybe, yeah. But with the thing with Jemme for me this season, she's been impressive, right? So she was my number 2 girl pick on our draft this season coming in. And, you know, I've not been a Jemme fan prior to this. I've seen her in her previous seasons, obviously, because she started after Fresh Meats too. And a lot of the time I felt like she was only there for the drama, which I love seeing. But when I'm picking a draft, I'm picking to win. Like, you know, I'm competitive. And I didn't think she was necessarily going to be the winner out there. But I did see her coming into the season being a lot more physically fit than what she was in any of her previous seasons. So far, she's been carrying a lot of the confessionals throughout the whole show. She's been seen as being one of the more logical people when it comes to strategy. So she definitely has that strategical mind on her. I love the alliance that she's got currently going with Nehemiah. And then lastly, to get into this challenge, she goes hard. She didn't show any fear in going down in that challenge, and she was trying to solve the puzzle. And I love the fact that, you know, you take a challenge like this where you've got to focus on actually putting the puzzle together, getting all the pieces correct, but you know, in the meantime, while you're trying to focus on this, you can't help but in the back of your mind think, anytime now, I'm going to fall down. So, I mean, I can only imagine, you know, I'm not afraid of heights, but I definitely would be thinking to myself, I don't want to hurt myself here. So I understand why a lot of people froze while they were up there. And the other part to this challenge is something that Nehemiah said. It was actually a really difficult puzzle because they were not just dealing with getting a letter done, but there was also different color schemes and different patterns. So even though a lot of people thought they had it, a lot of people had it wrong, and we end up with only one person ultimately actually completing it correctly.
I would have liked them to show what the completed puzzle looked like for a little bit longer because it seemed like a lot of people got it right. And I also kind of feel, I don't know if you guys agree with me, that maybe if it's upside down, that shouldn't be wrong because all the pieces were in the right configuration. And if you just went like this with the whole board, it would have been correct. So not knowing what was up and what was down just because it was a letter E, or I think it was an E. I don't know. Like, how do you guys feel about her being incorrect, but the pieces were in the right configuration?
I knew that Kendall was not going to get any credit for that. I mean, just knowing the challenge, they're not going to be like, oh, well, she did it technically correct. I mean, technically doesn't fly. They want the full thing correct no matter what. But I did think though that she was logical in that thinking of like, if I start switching it now, there's no way they're going to give me even credit. Like as long as I have it done, even if it's upside down, maybe they'll give me some credit. So I totally understand where she's coming from. But when she said it, I was like, there's no way you're going to fall in the water and you're not going to get any credit. I would have rather seen, I think one thing I would have liked to have seen is that like them like tallying up how many right pieces that everybody got, because at the end it's like, so only one person completed it, but can we know like how many pieces everybody else got to where, how'd you get the bottom team? Like, how'd you figure that Kendall and Mark were going to be going into the elimination? Because did their team get like no puzzle pieces correct, or how? Like, I would have liked to seen that. They just seemed like one person got it right, they win, you lose, go back to the house. And I was like, okay, that seems really quick, TJ, but all right, sure.
Yeah, especially because
go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Chantel.
I'm wondering if because Kendall got them all wrong, that means that they got the most wrong out of everybody. Maybe that's kind of how it went down. I'm not sure. Like I'm agreeing with you here too. Is that like I do want to see where these puzzle pieces went and what were, they did that fancy like I don't know lightning bolts over the puzzle pieces. So couldn't they have done that and show like which ones were green and in the correct spot? Like I don't know. I don't think it's that difficult. So yeah, I would have liked to know officially, how people did.
Yeah, especially because they're in teams here, right? So you'd want the team aspect to the challenge to mean something, and that the team with the high, you'd hope that it's the team that averaged the most correct puzzle pieces are the ones that are above the team that actually ends up going in at the end here. So it was a little bit difficult to follow as a viewer in this case. And like TJ said, this is paramount to their success to win this one. So I love the little pun that he threw in there. And I don't think I've heard TJ throw in puns before, but he's becoming a bit of a pun master this season, and he's having a lot of fun, which we love seeing. The other thing here in this challenge that for me personally was just golden TV was, Ruthie is someone coming into the season. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know how to rate her, but both Chantal and Mike Lewis told me that, listen, Ruthie is going to be a star this season, and she has been delivering in the confessionals time after time again.
So
and in this one specifically, you see Katie up there petrified. The only thing she can do is turn the puzzles around, and then immediately she freezes, gets her hands in. She doesn't do anything else. They play the perfect music. Here I go again. Give us all the flashbacks of her wiping out every single time on the challenge. And you get Ruthie standing there saying she would have loved to be up there to see it up close and personal, how petrified Katie is in the situation. And she'd love to fly with her because she's got a sixth sense of humor. And I love it. It's awesome TV seeing this.
Are you a Ruthie fan, Drew?
I love Ruthie. I mean, I really enjoyed her as a competitor back in her original challenge days. And I was so happy to see her on here on the cast list because I was like, oh, she's going to start she's going to go far. Like no matter what, Ruthie always gets far into the season and she always does really great. I didn't remember because I haven't rewatched any of those seasons, but she's killing these confessionals. And I just wanted to see more of her. Before this, the most recent we saw her was her cursing out Anissa in the back patio. And I was like, I want to see more of that. Why can't we see more? Please.
I mean, I don't know if we will because she might not be she's not going to be in the hot seat necessarily next week. Because I feel like there is a group of people going down into the arena that we haven't seen yet, and it wasn't her. So I don't think that we'll get a lot of Ruthie confessionals unless it's in the final.
Yeah.
I also think that I know we're going to get to the results, but for Big Easy and Ruthie to win, I mean, I think that was big because I think that overall they could have pushed the vote on Ruthie because I think Anissa would want to send her down there and possibly get her eliminated, especially going up against Kendall. And then the same with Jemmye, because Jemmye talked about how both of them are really strong competitors. So it would have been more interesting, I think, I think it would have been more interesting in the long run if Ruthie and Big Easy didn't win. But also in saying that, I think Katie still would have tried to volunteer herself and everybody would have been probably okay with it still. So.
Yeah, no, I don't think the outcome would have changed just because nobody actually wants to go home. And so, with someone being like, well, I'll take the risk here, guys, and let you guys off the hook. I don't think that people are going to go and push, especially Anissa being like, no, we have to go for Ruthie while we have the chance. I don't think that she'd blow up her social capital just to get Ruthie in because they have the opportunity. So I think that it worked out perfectly that they couldn't throw her in because or her or Big Easy in, and they had to do something else. I definitely wish though that Katie didn't decide to fall on her sword for everybody. I'm like, Katie, I picked her first. I picked her as my first woman because I was like, Katie is going to come back with the fire. There's no way that Katie is going to come back to the challenge without wanting to go in and win. And then we saw a couple episodes ago her talking to Derek being like, I've been training. I want people to think that I'm weak. So I'm like, okay, good. This is maybe a Katie getting to the end and maybe doing well kind of arc. And then she threw herself in. I'm like, Katie, I know that you're not scared of the elimination, but please have a little bit of self-preservation here. Stay for me, for my draft, please. So I was
Mark doesn't have the lifesaver. He doesn't have the lifesaver this episode, please.
I was wondering too, if Katie was kind of hoping that the whole argument that Kellyanne brought in is like, oh, hey, you guys, like, do you guys want Katie to be there? And maybe she thought she might get saved by them wanting maybe a stronger woman to go in. And so then it'd be a stronger duo that would be going down there. So I wonder if she was maybe thinking that might have been her way out.
Yeah, it's possible, especially if we look at what she sort of discussed with Janae earlier in the episode in regards to most guys probably not wanting to put her in due to the reason that she'll pull a strong person in with her. I did want to touch back on a few things on here when we sort of went through the episode. I think, especially with there only being 8 people out of the game, next episode, it's less than half of the cast that are actually going to get eliminated in an arena. And I think that the format itself actually takes away from the drama, because if you've got less than half of the people in the cast that are actually going to get backstabbed to a certain degree or going to have to go down into an arena, it's not really going to get a lot of people to fight with each other, because most of the decisions of who's going to go home, the game is going to take care of that themselves in the next episode. If there's a final, if there's a purge, people are going to get, there's not going to be any hurt feelings due to that. So I feel like it takes away a little bit from that drama. So I agree with you, Drew, that we should have seen double eliminations from the beginning of the season, so we had more people actually being forced to go down to the arena and get eliminated, because there are certain people who are not putting their hands up here. There are certain people who are playing a very smart game. If you look at Big Easy didn't want to take the responsibility of being a captain for this challenge. He ended up going to rock, paper, scissors with Leterian, even though I don't think Big Easy has been, I think he's maybe been captain once, where I feel like this was Leterian's 3rd time being a captain. So Leterian keeps standing up and doing it. Big Easy is walking away from that responsibility because he knows he could potentially go down to the arena if he loses. Same with people like Yesella, who doesn't want to go down there, and she wants, for instance, Kendall to go home at the end of this. She wants the strong people to be removed so she has a better opportunity. Anissa, I don't think, Anissa went down, she got called down, but I don't think Anissa would ever volunteer to go down. Jemme would never volunteer to go down. Janae will never volunteer to go down. A lot of the guys don't want to go down. So I feel like if the game forced them to make these decisions, we would see a lot more drama. And we've got to remember, in this season, we're dealing here with people that have had relationships for like 16 years. So a lot of them, it's even harder compared to the challenge that we see nowadays, where you get to meet people and maybe some of them have known each other for a while, but there's also a good chunk of new people in there, which makes for easy votes because you don't have that same relationships with them. I think that's what made this season that just passed so interesting with Leroy, knowing it's his last season and sort of, cutting people left, right, and center to get to the end, because he knew he wasn't going to have to pay the repercussions of that in the next season. But I think a lot of these things are sort of coming into play when we're looking at the All-Stars, and it's taking away from the drama. It's taking away from seeing more of that Ruthie fights that we would love to see.
I think, though, the reason why they're doing this is that they don't know what they're doing here. I think that, Mark came with them with this idea. Okay, you want more OGs. Okay, what kind of format? What will people be willing to do? How long will people be willing to stay? Who can we get? And then they're like, okay, what format's going to work? And I think they're just trying out just stuff just to see what is going to get reactions from the fans, if people even want to see another season of this. And I think that things will change moving forward now that they see that there is many of people that want to see these OGs compete. And then I think they're going to look and see what worked and apply that to the next season. So it's kind of like in the very beginning in 2000, when it was still real world versus road rules of the challenge, and 5 episodes. And it was like, what are they doing here? And like, there wasn't finals worth the way that they are now. And so I think that it's still growing pains for something brand new that they don't know what actually works yet for it. So I think that's why we don't have it exactly how we want it yet, because they don't know what we want.
Well, I think to that point also, I mean, you mentioned it earlier in this video that they're trying out stuff or they're bringing in stuff from past challenges. So they know they wanted to use the lifesaver in some way, because that's what was in the beginning with like the Inferno. They wanted to use the lifesaver, or life shield as it was called back then. They wanted to use it somehow in this format. And to that point, they're kind of thinking like, okay, we're going to test it out. Could it work nowadays? It probably won't work in the main season, but could it work in an all-star type setting? And now it's like, okay, now we're going to move like deeper into the challenge lore, where we had double eliminations, and like Cutthroat, where we had double eliminations. Now they're trying that. Now they're going to go to a purge, and then probably go into a final that kind of looks more like the newer seasons finals. And it's kind of like almost like a journey into seasons or challenge histories coming through this all-star. Even though it's 9 episodes, maybe next season will be 12 episodes, and we're going to get more of a defined format with some twists. Of course, they're going to add in some twists that are just going to throw everybody through a loop and stuff. So I think it's interesting the way they're doing it, but I do think that it's like, hey, we're giving the fans everything that they wanted from back then. Hey, guess what's back? Guess what's coming back? Guess what's leaving? And now it's like, oh, also we're trying out everything and anything to see what everybody likes. And apparently everybody likes everything. That
I do like
All-Stars
everything.
I was just going to say, like one of my favorite seasons of all time is Free Agents. And I love the fact that Free Agents were like, people were moving, you were in teams at times, you were single at times. There were different things being thrown at them at all times throughout the game. And I love that kind of format. And this feels like, obviously, there's a lot of old school twists that they've brought back into the game, but it kind of feels similar in the sense that the game is evolving. And I feel like the only reason we're not seeing it sort of boil over in the drama portion of it is because the season's a bit shorter and they can't sort of play out some of these twists a little bit longer to get the payoff for it. But I do feel like a lot of the things, like even the lifesaver, like I'd love to bring that into the current season. It will bring drama. Anytime that people in the game need to make decisions, I love it. You know, when they are not forced to make a decision and people make the decisions voluntarily, like going into an elimination or something like that, that takes away from the drama, it takes away from the strategy of the season. So I love that. So at the end of this challenge, we see that Big Easy wins it outright, which I think is a great example of Big Easy still being a bit of a sleeper here, because I think a lot of people seeing him come into the season would have remembered him gas out, would have remembered some of the things that potentially didn't make him one of the best to ever play the game. But like I said, when I chose Big Easy in my draft, I think he's got a lot of heart. I think he's someone that's going to push himself. And I do think, you know, if you've been poor your whole life and you can have potentially $500,000 at stake here, you're going to do it. And he looks a little bit more fit compared to what he did in previous seasons. I actually think he's one of those players that came back looking in better shape than what he was when he did it way back in the day. So I don't know if he's going to win the whole show, but I love the fact that Big Easy wins a daily challenge here. I like the fact that it's not your normal people winning every single daily challenge. And it shows why the challenge is such a great show, because it's not just based on physical. It's not just based on endurance. You also have to have smarts. You also have to be cool under pressure, which he shows here that he is cool under pressure and getting that puzzle sorted out while potentially having to fall down this trap door from a height. So it's great to see. And we know now that Mark and Kendall, who this whole season have been going, like, not so much Kendall, but Mark has been going after Kendall this whole season. And he's now going to have his fate in this game tied to Kendall. And the rest of this episode with Mark working with Kendall, for me, was a great example to Fessy of what he needs to do in the future if he ever works with a partner. Because even though Mark doesn't like her, even though their personalities are over here and over here in opposite directions, he understands that he needs to meet her in the middle so they can actually win this challenge and work together. And new challenges, you know, take a leaf here from the book of The Godfather and actually do this. You have a partner on the show.
Oh, just one more Fessy dig is like, why didn't he just carry Casey? Like when, you know, what's his name? Kenny carries Wes that has the cramp up like a mountain carrying the pet rock. Like that's what you do if you want to win. That's what a champion does. So sorry, I just need to exert that Fessy disdain quickly. Sorry, back to All-Stars.
No, I think Mark shows a lot of what wisdom and like patience here. I also think that he's not giving Kendall enough credit coming into this elimination. He saw what she could do in daily challenges when he saw what she could do in eliminations with Trishelle. I mean, I get where he's coming from, but I mean, he's the one with the 0-1 elimination record coming into this elimination. So I felt like, all right, Mark, you got big biceps, but we've seen people with big biceps go home because of other things besides big biceps. Like, I get that he's nervous to have his fate tethered to somebody else, but it's like, come on, man. Like, you got to give Kendall some respect for winning daily challenges, winning elimination already this season. So I thought it was a little unfair to Kendall, but I think that he worked well with her. And I think going back to Fessy, CT and Veronica did not work well with each other in Final Reckoning. And CT came into this season of Double Agent saying like, look, I learned a lot from that season. I learned that you need to bring up your partners rather than knock them down continuously, because it really bit him that season as he kept on just knocking Veronica down. And we saw what happened in this season with him and Big T. So I think it's just a learning experience, and you get it with age and you get it with experience. And I mean, Final Reckoning wasn't that long ago. So, I mean, hopefully Fessy could learn it sooner than CT did. So
I don't
Yeah,
know
but
if
I
you
feel
will.
like CT and Fessy are two different people, though. I feel like CT, and I mean, listen, everybody grows, but I feel like Fessy really drinks his own Kool-Aid, and he really thinks that he's just that much better than everyone else, and he's just not going to lower his standards to meet other people. And it's going to be interesting because even if you looked at the reunion show, how he just really struggled to take any feedback coming his way. I don't know if he's gonna learn in the short term, but I hear what you're saying because CT definitely have had that issue in the past, and I remember very well the Veronica season because that was the first season I ever watched, and I couldn't understand. Similar to Fessy this season, I couldn't understand why CT was so great and why people said he was the greatest of all, one of the greatest of all time at that time, because I just thought he was being a bit of a dick that season. But now I love him. Now I think he's one of my favorite characters. I've had a love-hate relationship with him this season with Big T and how he treated her as well at certain points. But overall, I'm still a big fan of CT. And I think that you're right. Mark being a more experienced guy, like a lot of the time with men as we grow older, we calm down a little bit. The testosterone doesn't take over as much. We actually start thinking with this head, not with the other head. And we actually start working with the people that we have to play the game with a little bit better. So I think Mark ultimately does a good job here. And I do agree that, Mark talks himself up quite a bit here, but he is going to go up against probably one of the few people that physically can take him on in this challenge. So it is going to be pretty interesting to see where that is going to land. The next part here of the episode is with them being at the party, and it's really funny to see Katie have the crown on her head for a chance here. And now it's changed that the person who's going to go into the elimination, she now has all the power, and the guys are going to come to her to tell her why they should not be selected to go down to the arena. And we see different people here. Yes, coming saying that he's injured his head, he's got puzzle trauma or something like that. He can't do the puzzles. You've got Derek with the walking cane, with the bandage on his head, with the blood on it, saying, I'm injured. Everybody is trying to make excuses for why they shouldn't go in here, which I thought was just a great scene. And Katie says that it's like the reverse Bachelor. It's like, why should you not choose me on the show?
Oh my God, that was my favorite part of the episode. Like, I was just cackling. I was like, oh yeah, these guys are just fun. They like making fun TV. Watching all these old seasons, I'm like, they're always in their parties, they're playing pranks, they're doing silly things all the time. And so I was just enjoying that they, weren't taking it too seriously. Katie wasn't getting offended by the fact that nobody really wanted to go in with her. And we didn't get shown this part, but Derek apparently did say to her, like, hey, if you really want me to go in with you, I will, and I'll give you 110%. Like, this is just kind of a gimmick for the show, but like, I would be there for you if you asked me to be there. And so I was like, oh my God, it's still they're still touching and they're still human, but like they're just making good TV. I was like, I loved it. I laughed. I was like, it was great.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing and gimmick that we don't see on the normal seasons now. It's like once the $1 million, once you have 20-year-olds and early 20-year-olds in a house together, it's just like everything gets so serious. You also get like a lot of dark clothes and you're spy themed, and all of a sudden it's just like everybody has to be super serious all the time. And this was fun. I know I saw some like Twitter stuff where people were like, oh, that seems sad for Katie that nobody wants to go into the elimination. And I was like, I think it's more of like they didn't want to go up against Mark first and foremost than being partnered up with Katie. I think it's more on like Mark is huge and they don't want to be in like a pole wrestle or a hall brawl going up against Mark than anything else. But I think to hear in the aftermath, which I'm so happy that we have the aftermath, hearing in the aftermath that other players were behind the scenes going like, look, just pick me. If you want to pick me, I'll do it. Like, don't worry about it. But to play it up in front of the camera was really, really funny. And I think Nehemiah's like eye twitch was like low key one of the funniest things ever.
Yeah, he's got an eye injury, so he can't help it in this challenge. But it is really funny to see, and you also see at the party here, you see Mark outside saying that if it's a hall brawl tomorrow, he's just going to pop 4 ibuprofen and he should be good to go. Which I found pretty funny. The old guy needs to put some ibuprofen in his system before he gets out there and does the hall brawl, which is really funny to see. Another thing that I kind of missed prior to the party, which I definitely want to touch on, is that, as Katie goes out there and she volunteers herself to go into the elimination, again, Jimmy is the person here with the most logical confessional saying that it's crazy that nobody understands the point of the game is not to go into an elimination and you need to stay out of it. And she says that, If you look at this, the old Katie would have been disappointed at this. The old Katie would have come in here, would have fought. There's no way she would have volunteered herself to go in there, and that the old Katie wouldn't recognize current Katie currently. So obviously, as someone that didn't see Katie in those earlier seasons, Chantel, can you elaborate a little bit on, what would Katie have been like in the past? Because we see her here at the end saying that, normally she leaves flipping off people, and this time she's going up and giving people hugs.
Well, that's the difference, is I think that she is not the outcast, and so she's comfortable. She likes everybody. She doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. She's getting along with everybody. And so it's not the same dynamic that she used to have before. She wasn't having everybody be like, Katie's a weakling, throw her in. Who cares about Katie? And her always being her back up against the wall and having to like stand up, protect herself, and going in. And she wants to come out because she wants to just be like, F you guys, like, don't throw me in there again. But they are going to, and she knew that. And so I think it's completely because of the dynamic of the house and what she feels for all these people, that she doesn't have that same fight in her because she's not in the same circumstance.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. I mean, you don't have Veronica in here wanting to throw her in after like one time after another, because she's on the Road Rules team with Katie. She views her as a weak link, and she wants her out, and she wants her out now. We saw that going along with the Gauntlet and in the Inferno. I mean, they threw in Katie so many times in that season, just trying to get her out, and she would not leave. She made it to the finals and they won, but it's just like, oh my gosh, like I think it's definitely the dynamic. And when comes age, comes wisdom, comes intelligence, comes patience, comes experience. And I think with how much love and support she has in the house besides Trishelle, she just was like having a great time, and she just didn't want, I think she was ready to fall on her sword because she knew that she didn't try, and she likes and respects everybody in the house, that she didn't want somebody else to jeopardize their part when she didn't feel like she didn't do adequate enough in the challenge. So I totally get it. I totally respect it. From a viewer standpoint, though, I want to see bloodshed. I want to see people like scrapping to save their lives. So I kind of wanted to vote here.
But it's also she's just not in the same circumstances as she was before. So she's not going to react in the same way. I think you have like a dog that's been abused its whole life. It's just going to be barking and biting or whatever. But if you're, super nice with the dog and you're giving it treats and you're kind to it, it's definitely not going to be barking and biting at you. So I think it's just her environment completely brought a different side of Katie out. And we're not seeing that fight that we used to see before because she was being tortured, literally.
Yeah, and I mean, she's at a different place in her life right now. She's got a husband, she's got a kid, like she's really happy in life. So I don't think she came to the challenge thinking from the start, I'm necessarily going to win this thing, or I need to prove myself, because, she could probably look at this and say, even if I go out here in the challenge, I am killing it at life. I've done better than some of these people who've come back here who don't even have kids yet, who aren't even married yet, or that type of thing. So she's probably happy with where she's at. She's content. I did find it quite heartwarming. I thought it was a bad move by Leterian to say, I will go in there and do it. I understand Leterian's character a lot more after the season. I understand who he is as a person, so I understand why he put himself out there. I thought it was heartwarming that he said, I will fight with you. I will go to war. I've got the confidence to do it. There's a lot of other guys here that are scared to go out there into the eliminations. I'm not going to be one of them. And he really has a lot of confidence in himself. And it is good to see. He's really got that old school approach to himself. But I do think that if Leterian has got this mindset in the Challenge All-Stars 2, he's going to find himself get eliminated before the finale again. You can't play this game like that. There's very few people that can do it. Jordan Wisely is probably one of those people that can go out there and in most cases put himself in eliminations and still end up going to the end. But even he has lost doing that before against Banana. So I feel like it's such a high-risk gameplay here from him.
I think both him and Cyrus, I think that what they did was they didn't want to go out looking like a chump. Like, I think that, Cyrus threw himself in against Alton because if he were to lose, he could lose with honor. And I think that was the same with Leterian. He's like, do you know what? Like, I don't want to look like I'm scared to go in. So I'm going to go put myself in. So I still look like I'm a big man. I'm willing to go down there and fight against my friend. And I think it's just to be able to, if he loses, he's going to lose with honor as opposed to feeling as though he's going to lose like a chump. So I think it was more calculated and more ego based why he decided to be like, oh, I'll go down with you for Katie. I'm not scared. And I think it's just if he loses, he looks still like a hero.
Yeah,
I don't buy it.
I also think it goes back to what everybody came to this season to do. And you brought up Big Easy. I think gassing out on Gauntlet 3, he's coming in for redemption. Gassing out on Gauntlet 3, quitting in Battle of the Seasons the last time we saw him. It's kind of like they want to come back for something. And I think Leterian really wanted to come back and show that he is a strong competitor, that he is coming in. He wants to fight. I mean, he didn't even know what a pole wrestle was coming into this. So he's coming into a whole season of all firsts. Like, there's eliminations. I have to go in and fight. This is awesome. Like, I want to go in and fight. And I think, to Chantel's point, I mean, Cyrus wanting to go in against Alton, whether it's because he had a vendetta against him when they were voting an ace, or if it was because he was dying on the mountain and he felt like it was a sabotage, or if it was just a pride and ego thing, or wanting to leave, going out against a big name like Alton. I think it's sometimes it's pride comes before the fall, and sometimes you get so big on yourself that you sometimes don't play the way the challenge games are smartly played. Sometimes it's better to work smarter, not harder. And they definitely wanted to play harder this time around. And I think if there is a season 2, maybe we'll see a different strategy from Leterian, where he's like, I kind of want to stay around with Anissa a little bit longer and make it to a finals. Because when seeing the mini final daily challenge that one time, he destroyed it. And I was like, this dude could go very far. I mean, he was a real contender.
100%. I mean, for me, the thing with Leterian this season is that he had a really good run in the season up to the point I penalize him less for going and volunteering to go help his friend out in the arena than I sort of penalize someone for saying, I am happy to be nominated as the house vote to go into the arena. I feel like there's two different categories here. And I do think that, Leterian had a legitimate chance of taking Mark on. Like, he actually does go in there. He ends up winning the first one. It does look like it does come down to maybe a little bit of endurance and stamina is where Mark actually ended out smarting him a little bit in there. I would have loved to have seen like a time counter to see how long each one of those challenges went on for. And the other thing that it sort of, again, reminded me of was that challenge that Jordan Wisely beat Joss not that long ago, which was the same thing. It immediately reminded me of that one. And it just gives me even more respect for someone like a Jordan being able to beat someone like a Joss with one arm, because this looked absolutely brutal on their hands, looked brutal on their arms. Form was a big thing. You get people saying here early on, I believe it was Nehemiah who said that Kendall goes into her yoga pose from the start, which I don't really know if that was a yoga pose, to be honest. But obviously they got to like bring the yoga thing in there. But she's got good form compared to like a Katie who's hunched over trying to do it. So it was a really shock for me, a big shock for me when that first round ended up going Leterian and Katie's way, because I thought going into this that Mark and Kendall was going to dominate this. But it ends up being a close battle throughout. So it was still something that Mark and Kendall had to come back from being 1-0 down to actually end up taking it at the end here.
I do have a question about how the challenge went down. So we know that Katie and Leterian won the first round. So that was cut and dry. But then the second round, what if it was 1-1? Like, I know that Katie ended up, once Leterian lost it, like she ended up just dropping it because she didn't want to exert any more energy. What would have happened if she won that heat and it would have been kind of like a stalemate?
I think it's a stalemate. I think no one gets the point and they say, you've got to go again. So it's kind of like, how CT was really upset in this last season when he went in against Kyle, and I believe Big T had to go up against Cam in the finale, and both of them had to win their round for it to count. And CT was really upset about the fact that he said, we could be out here all day because Big T probably will never beat Cam. And, me and Kyle are just going to go out at it against each other, and we're going to absolutely destroy each other. And probably CT, I still feel like CT threw that one to Kyle, because he just thought there's absolutely no chance that I'm going to be out here the whole day. Like, not that Kyle isn't strong, but it would have taken a lot out of him. So I feel like it could have been a really, really bad situation where if the two are not that well matched and Leterian keeps beating Mark here, but Katie keeps losing potentially to Kendall, then that could have been going on for quite a long time here, which is not ideal. You'd want there to be some, hopefully they thought about some sort of stalemate thing at the end where they say, okay, fine, we're now moving to individuals. If you beat your opposing person, you stay, and if you beat your opposing person, you stay, kind of thing. We'd hope that would be the stalemate if they ended up like doing this round after round without them actually getting a win on the challenge.
So yeah. So then I guess it was smart then of Katie just to like be like, I don't want to waste my energy here. Like, we're going to take the loss. Okay.
Yeah, because in the aftermath, I think they both said it went for an hour and a half. and that there was rounds where they did tie. So there was 0 points getting awarded. So I think at that time, Katie was getting tired, and she's thinking that, okay, if I do lose this point, if they go for another, like, I don't know, like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, just like holding onto this rope, and she loses it anyways, and they give them the point, then she's like, I'm screwed for the next round. And now it's going to be on all in Leterian the next time around. And we're going to just keep on going into this cycle. So I think there were some rounds where we didn't see that they stalemated on. But yeah, that first point going to Leterian and Katie, I was like, okay, now you got to win 2 in a row. Let's see how this goes. Like, because Kendall, I think, just loses focus in that first round, drops the rope, and then Mark drops it as well. And I think to that point, Leterian went way too hard, way too early. And then Mark was trying to figure out a way to get that rhythm going. And then we see it happening really quickly in round 2. Like, for an hour and a half elimination, these rounds were like super quick that they decided to edit. Like, they were just like, oh, they got the rope. Now cut this up. All right, this person got the point. Let's go. Like, we got to keep this rolling.
I wish that there was a little more strategy that these people, they really used a lot of, energy with pulling and just kind of pulling back and forth. But as we've just already talked about with Jordan, like, he was able to outsmart Josh there, like, get him to stumble, like, do things that he's not expecting so that he will just like step off or drop the rope or whatnot. So I do wish that I was rooting for Katie and Leterian to come back, even though, like, I think I have both of them on my someone on both sides of my team. I was really hoping that she was going to be able to outsmart her, because I don't think that Kendall is that smart. And I feel like she could have just done some like a little fancy footwork and pull it, and Kendall just like loses focus and steps off. So I was pretty bummed with how it went down in the end, that it was just all about strength and endurance as opposed to like an outsmarting.
Well,
yeah, 100%.
Well, with Mark, Leterian was like getting ready. Like, it looked like the strategy on Leterian and Katie's side at one point was doing like a jump rope kind of thing with the thing to get like the rope a little bit loose, and then they would try to yank it, and that's how Katie got the rope from Kendall in round 1. And then when Leterian was trying to do that in round 2, that's when Mark just was like, I'll give him as much rope as he wants. So when he did that big old yank, he took his momentum off the stump. So I think there was some strategy there, but by the end, I don't know how many rounds there were. They were getting to minute 87, and they're just like, I can't even hold this rope. My forearms are dead. And they're just like, Mark is just pulling that rope while Kendall's just standing on her log like, let's go. I already won mine. Let's wrap this up, please.
Yeah. No, it's tough. Like, I mean, the way that the show was edited, it looked like they gassed out super quick because they didn't show us how long the actual challenge went on for. That's why I would have loved to have seen like 1 hour into this, or round number 20, or whatever they needed to do on there, to give us a little bit of a better visual and a better appreciation for how much work went into actually winning this challenge. And like you quite rightfully said there at the end, Leterian doesn't even use his hands. He starts wedging it in between his arms to try and pull the rope back with his arm because he can't grip the rope any longer. You could see that in Leterian's case, it wasn't a case of his mind giving in. I feel like Katie, potentially her mind gave in a few times on that challenge, but I feel like with Leterian, it was a case of his body physically giving out on him and him not being able to pull that rope any longer. So he really put in a massive fight there. And at the end there, he said that, if he was going to go out, he's happy that he went out next to Katie in this challenge. This is the way that he would love to go out. Katie is really emotional about her time on the show. She mentions that this has been the best experience for her so far coming onto the show, and she had a really great time there. Do we think that we see Katie back if she's asked back again because she had such a good time?
She'd come back, I think. I think that she would come back again and maybe try a little harder. Maybe be like, hey guys, I'll come back if not every single challenge is me suspended above water. Like, she probably would put that in her clause, because I think pretty much, like, I don't know, like 4 out of 6 of those challenges were suspended over water. So they probably did that to her on purpose, because you saw TJ even be like kind of teasing her a little bit, being like, oh, I thought you were going to hit your face on the puzzle, like on your way down. And she's like, yeah, I figured that's what you thought. So they could have been maybe hoping to get some drama out of Katie with all these heights challenges. So maybe she'll be like, I'll come back if you can guarantee that they're not all going to be heights challenges.
There's a lot of water challenges for this season so far, but I think Mark said that everybody who's left was like, I would come back. Like, if you ask me, I'll come back, which is like so nice to hear. as a fan. You're just like, you want people that are wanting to be on the show. And they're doing such a great job because I know there was like a lot of people when watching videos or looking at the cast were like, these people, like, why are there so many like question marks on the show? Like, I don't even remember who Tech is. Like, what? And then when watching the show, everybody's like, oh my gosh, I love Tech. Why did he leave so early? Oh, Katie is doing so great. Leterian is one of my favorites. Super respect for him. And it's like, but that's what happens when you bring in so many people. That Mark probably knows all these people and like called them up and kept in touch, and everyone who like comes onto the show. And this also helps with editing as well. Like editing really plays a massive point to really help sell the show, even if like people aren't like buying into the cast or the daily challenges, which I think kind of fall flat a little bit in the main seasons at times.
Well, I think too, what we were, the luxury that we had of these people back in the day was that they got on Real World or Road World for the most part because of their personality. Like they're all going to be really unique individuals that were coming to live together on either an RV or in a house. And so they already did good casting the first time around. So when you're bringing all these good casts together for, heightened stakes for money, we're going to get some TV gold. And so they just had a better people that were cast on the show back in the day. And I think that they're living up to why they were cast originally, is because like they're great TV. They're great. And everybody's really in confessionals. Like even not getting, like they're still really good. They have a really good way of sharing what's going on in the game. And so that's actually what I think is missing the most on the main season, is that, yeah, there's some people that are good at confessionals, but it's just not as fun. And like, I'm not as excited to hear like what so-and-so is going to say, because I'm like, Casey, your confessionals suck. I don't need a Casey confessional. I'll take an Anissa confessional, but she's old school. So, there's
a difference between Real World confessionals and like Big Brother confessionals, where they're just yelling at the screen on a couch. And you're like, no, we don't need this. Like, just turn it off. Like, we don't need to hear what you have to say. It's fine. I want funnier commentary from like Kyle or Anissa or Darrell even. I mean, he's fantastic in this season and in Double Agents. So, yeah, I think there's something to it. And also, I think somebody or multiple people said that all these like contestants aren't trying to like make a living off of this. They've already have their livings. They already have everything outside the show. Like everybody now is like, oh, I want to be the next CT. I want to be the next Bananas, Cara. I want to be having 15 seasons in a row and make multi-million dollars, like winning season after season after season kind of thing. And it's like, well, that's the kind of mindset it is now. And they're trying to like do everything, whereas on here everybody's just being themselves. Like I'm just in a room filled with my friends from a long time ago, 15 years ago. I'm having a great time. We're all reverting back to when we were 20 and just yelling at each other at 4 a.m. after a night out and having to go jump off of a huge cliff into water kind of thing after answering trivia questions. So it's like, it's really, really fun. It's a real breath of fresh air after especially Total Madness and then this long season of Double Agents.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, a lot of the time, like I've got to say the recent seasons, right? So firstly, to address the Big Brother comment, like I'm a Big Brother fan. I'm not a massive, like I wouldn't say Big Brother is my number one reality show that I love. Like Survivor for me is number one, and then the rest follows from there. But I'm a Big Brother fan, and I do think that a lot of the Big Brother players that they're bringing into the challenge, actually I don't think it, I know it. They're not the best. They're not bringing in the best Big Brother players, and it's casting's fault of the challenge that they're bringing in the players that they're bringing in. Like Casey was boring the first time she played. Did she win a good game? Yeah, she won a good game, but she also beat a person who probably was more entertaining and played a better game than her, but she won because she did less, and the people weren't angry at her because she did less, So for me, she was a bit of a boring winner. Joss, never liked him the first time around. I thought he was obnoxious in this first season, so I'm not surprised. But I do think that Joss brings a lot of people into the challenge watching it because they want to see him fail. Fessy, I didn't really care for him the first time. I like him even less now that he plays the challenge because I think he's full of himself. Amber B, I did like. I think that she did pretty reasonable this season. I'm actually gutted that the first woman of color that wins the show, she doesn't get to come back for a second season to defend her title. I think that's pretty bad from the challenge cast to not bring her back for the next season if rumors are to be believed. And they've done it twice now where the female champions are not coming back to defend their title. I feel like if they wanted to, they should come back. And I don't know if it's a case of Amber maybe not wanting to come back. But just to finish it off, because I know, Chantal, you've got something to say on there. I think that there's a lot better players in Big Brother with great confessionals who don't just yell at the camera, that will actually make for good TV. And I think that we shouldn't blame Big Brother as a show for not being up to the standard of some of the road rules or some of the real world cast people in the past. Like, there are good players. We've only seen 4 or 5 of those players so far actually make the way into the challenge. Actually, maybe a little bit more, actually 7, now that I think about it. I love Devon. Obviously, she doesn't want to do it anymore. I think Josiah would have been a great character if they still brought him back more. And Paulie, I would take Paulie above Fessy or above Josh.
Yeah,
in my
you know
opinion.
what? Yeah, wow. I would too. That's shocking for me to say because I'm not a Paulie fan at all. I don't remember what I was going to say before, though. I forgot.
Probably on Amber not coming back as the first.
Oh, I think
winner
like Amber and Jenny, they're both kind of boring. And so it depends on what the format is, and I think that's why that Amber B is an alternate, because things that have been kind of thrown around is that it might be an international versus US season, and I think that the vets versus rookies could be either from either countries, and so I think that Amber it just depend on how they want to configure things, because would she be a rookie then still, even though she's a winner, and then be having like a new like a person from the UK be her rookie or a vet, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's just kind of hard with the format that they're putting in to place Amber.
But let me just put this out there. You're saying that Amber is boring. Casey is boring. Casey is super boring. She hasn't won the show yet. So why is Casey getting casted above Amber? Like, I feel like that should be the other way around. Weaken Joss a little bit, weaken Fessy a little bit. I've seen that trio work together now for a couple of seasons. I don't want to see it for a third or fifth season.
Casey's been on, it will be her 3rd season, I believe. So I think that she is actually a vet in the eyes of the challenge. Once you do 2 challenges, you're considered a vet. So I think it's because it was Amber's first season that she's kind of more difficult to be placed in whatever the format that they're going to be doing.
Yeah, so we went off a little bit here. Yeah, sorry, you go ahead, Drew.
Oh, I just wanted to throw out there that I was going through my head of like everybody that was on War of the Worlds, trying to figure out if there was any like 2nd-year players. And I think of Paulie and I think of Devon, who were on Final Reckoning as their rookie seasons. And then they came on to do War of the Worlds, and they were partnered up with a rookie as their partners in that season. So I think if she were to come back and they were partnered up with a rookie, like a Fresh Meat style, like a War of the Worlds, she would be considered a quote unquote vet. But I know there's a lot of like, there's a lot of talk about what's a vet and what's a rookie nowadays. Is it after 1 challenge, you're a vet now? Is it after a full year? Is it after 3 seasons? And so it's a very touchy subject.
Listen, if you've won the show, in my opinion, you're a vet. Like, I'm sorry, if you're someone that's been out there and you've done it for 10 seasons, but you've never won the show, then in my opinion, you're less of a vet than the person who's been out there 1 season and have actually showed up and done the whole thing, So I think some respect needs to be put on Amber's name here, and I will fight for her on this. I think that she had a really good season. Like I said, I think she deserved the opportunity to go back there and play again. I don't know if it is a case of Joss and Fessy saying in our clause, because they're becoming such big challenge characters currently, we need Casey to be here with us because she's part of the 3 of us kind of thing. I don't know if there was like some of that negotiations happening behind the scenes, because if they go back without Casey, that's 2 of them on their own, and they probably wouldn't last as long in the game. But I know we've gone a little bit off topic here, but I just wanted to address the whole Big Brother thing, because I hear that a lot in the fandom, and I feel like blaming Big Brother is not the way to go here. I feel like blame casting for the people that they're choosing. And the same can be said for Survivor. There's some great Survivor players out there as well. I don't think Jay's a bad player. He's been entertaining to see so far on the show, but I do feel like he's fallen flat a couple of times. I do know who the Survivor players are that they're bringing in for this season. I don't have that high hopes that they'll go deep in this season either. We'll see how it goes. I know it's a bit of a hot take on that one, but I just think there's better players, and we're not seeing them.
Well, I think they're just not as fame-thirsty. I think the people that they're bringing on really want to be on another show. And so it's that's like, go ahead.
I was just going to say, well, first of all, Jay got help because he was on an X on the Beach season. So he got that help coming in. The same with Morgan. But also with Survivor, we got the Big Brother era. Now we're getting the Survivor era, what it looks like. I mean, everybody's clamoring throughout this past couple of seasons that we got too many Big Brothers, give us more Survivor. Now we're going to get more Survivor. Is that going to start biting us in the butt now? Like, I think I think production's like, we'll give you what you want and we'll see what you like. Here's what you got. You got people from Romania Survivor, and you're gonna get Michelle Fitzgerald. Hope you're happy. Like, okay, thank you.
Well, I also had like a bit of a problem with Are You the One in the beginning, but then now I'm okay with Are You the One being how they vet some of their new players. I'm like, okay, it could be Are You the One. Kind of stays in the same format of keeping within the family. And so I guess since Viacom merged with CBS, fine, you can use your other CBS shows to cast people. I just wish it wasn't some of the people that they're choosing. It's just the fame thirsty ones, the ones that aren't fans of the show. I want to see fans of the show come on the show, not just people that are looking for a paycheck through the challenge. I just want a fan. I just want someone that's watching the season.
Let's go into our draft here just towards the end of this podcast to quickly have a look at the players that are actually playing in this show. And I do agree they have been doing a really good job so far this season. We have got two people here from Chantel's team that is going to go to the eliminated section with Leterian and Katie. And it was really a bad week for you overall here, Chantel, because, the other option was to lose Kendall, who was also a part of your picks here. And it's going to be pretty interesting here going into the next episode because I'm taking a slight lead here at the moment. If you had to look at our sort of draft picks here.
Hold on, I need to say something first. So
yes.
There was a third person that was on this draft before. And so the first 5 people were who we originally drafted. And then we drafted their team once they weren't going to be doing it anymore. So that's why it's kind of like a weird order, just so you're aware.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was thinking that too. I was like, wow, some of these people that you drafted were taken late in the draft. Like, wow.
Yeah. No, so it was somebody else's draft, and then we drafted their draft after. So just so you understand that, I would never have, drafted so-and-so, 7.
Just by the way, you should tell.
Or to sell a third. No.
If you didn't, just putting it out there, if you didn't get those last 3 players here from the other draft, you would have ended up with 3 players at this point in your draft. So it's worked in your favor getting some of those players from the other person in here. So We've got Darrell, who was selected in the first round of the second part of the draft when Chantel had an opportunity. And I really wanted Darrell. In my opinion, Darrell is the person to beat this season. So I think that she could lose everybody on her draft, but having Darrell there still probably means that Chantel could still take this out at the end.
Yeah, I mean, Darrell, Ruthie, Alton, and I think Yes is playing very much under the radar. He almost went into the elimination this episode. He didn't seem like he was super confident, but I think that he's playing a good under the radar game. But yeah, those 3 and Yes, I think are strong. I think Hazella is doing great, but from the mid-season teaser, if I feel like she could be going into the elimination next. Yeah. So that'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, 100%. And on the team here on my side, I still feel very strong about Nehemiah. For some other reason, I just feel like he's had a really big season. He's been
he's so obsessed with him.
Yeah, I just love Nehemiah. He was my second guide pick, but I like him because he's been talking a lot of the strategy. He's been a narrator for a lot of the season. Him and Jimmy being quite close there. I feel like they've really driven the narrative of the season. I don't know if they'll win the whole season, but I feel confident that we'll see Nehemiah in the final, and he will be somewhere in the top 3. I feel like he's going to be somewhere in the top 3. I'm putting it out there. And then my number 1 guy pick was Derek. I am a little bit fearful of Derek because Derek, I think he's a great competitor and obviously picked him for a reason as my number 1 pick as a guy. The problem for me with Derek is there's been times where he's been really quiet throughout the season, and they're doing enough to keep him and giving him those confessionals. I just don't know if he's going to win it at the end there, but I do feel like, puzzles, he's starting to get better at those guys. So who knows? Anything is possible getting into the final here.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that Derek is quiet because when listening to his Challenge Mania, I mean, he is definitely the opposite of that. Yeah. He is definitely outspoken. He's definitely getting more. I think this is how he is in all of his challenge seasons, though. He's so social. He's so cool with everybody, that he just like, he floats around like water. He just goes from group to group. Everyone just like likes him. They all talk and they hang out, but he's not like the face. Like nobody has ever like been like, oh, Derek should be the face of the challenge, but he's like, so like, just everybody likes to talk to him. And I mean, earlier on in the season when Kendall was feeling down, he was talking to her. The same with Katie wanting to talk to him. And I mean, he was like the shoulder that everybody wanted to talk on. And it's just like, that's him in the island. And that's him everywhere that he went. He was just like the guy who was just social. And it's just like, I don't know. It was sad to see him go away from the challenge for so long, because he was just that like consistent figure around the house that was just like always talking to everybody. And Nehemiah's your tenderoni now, so he's not claiming bet, so now you can take him.
Yeah, he's my tenderoni for the rest of the season. I don't know what it is. I've really liked Nehemiah this season. I think that he's like, in my opinion, bring him back to the actual show, and in this case, replace him with one of these Big Brother characters. I don't care. I don't feel any sort of love towards the Big Brother players that they currently have playing the show in any case. But before Nehemiah, I would bring Derek back. I think that it's an absolute shame. He's only like 37 years old, and he's not playing the challenge, actual seasons currently. And I think that, he brings a lot to the show. He is an absolute pit bull when it comes to going into eliminations. And like you said, he's got that really great social game as well. And when I mean that he was quiet, I said it's kind of like they don't give him a lot of confessionals. I don't think he's quiet as a person out there, but they've given him only a few confessionals compared to a lot of other players on the show. But I feel like if you're getting confessionals, it is still a positive thing. Like Yes, for instance, I think that Yes is probably similar to Yesella for me. I feel like he might go prior to the finale. And the reason that I feel like he might go prior to that is because he mentioned he has never been in an elimination before. And I feel like that could be a bit of a foreshadowing for what's to come if you read into the edit potentially here, which I know Chantel doesn't want to hear because those are two of her people going into the final.
Man, I only need one. I only need one to win. And I think I have a few people that could take the number one spot. So I'm okay. I'm never nervous.
And to your point about Derek being quiet and not getting a lot of screen time, I mean, for somebody that has a big following in the challenge universe and how like interactive he is with everybody, I think coming into this, everybody was wanting to see Darrell and Derek and a lot of the road rulers. So, I mean, it is interesting not seeing him get as much screen time as everybody else. But I think it's also to highlight other people that haven't been in the challenge universe. Like, I mean, Derek has been interviewing people for so long on his podcast that it's like, we all get how you feel, Derek. We all get how you feel. Let's bring in what Hizella and Alton and everybody is feeling on everybody in the season. So
that's fair enough. Now, Chantel, any final thoughts here going into the next episode for the challenge?
I mean, I'm definitely sad that we're really over the hump now, because I was like, it's just been so entertaining. And, I know we have some stakes on here, even with the fact that like we have our draft picks, but like, no matter what, I don't want anybody to win or lose. Like, I want them all to win. I want them all to lose. Like, they're kind of like my little babies that I'm like, I just want to see them all do well. And so I'm just thoroughly enjoying it. I'm sure I love talking about it. I can talk about it all day. I can't wait to see what happens next week and see how this really all starts shaking out.
Do we know if Devon's going to host the reunion for this one?
I heard not. I heard it's two people that are completely separate from the challenge universe. I think
why do they never listen to the fans? What the hell?
A football person and some. I mean, see if I can find it right now. But it was completely like people I didn't know who they were, and so.
Yeah, that's sad. They should listen to the fans. Well,
I would also love if so Devon did say that she didn't want to come and do the show. She's like, she thought about it for 24 hours and then she's like, actually, no, I don't want to do this. But like, if they did like another X's or another Rivals from the past or the OGs, because her and Big Easy, like if they were partnered together, like I just need to see that.
Devon would never do it. Right? Devon would never do it if she's tied to Big Easy coming into the season. Come on, she wants to win the show. Now, Drew, what do you have going on at your channel at the moment? What's the next sort of videos to expect? You mentioned you did quite a few videos over the last couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like this week, I've filmed like 8 videos so far, 7 videos. and I'm only going to put out 6 overall. I think I don't even think I'm going to do one of them that I filmed already. But I'm going to be throwing everything and anything at the wall and seeing what's going to go on. I'm going to keep on going over All Stars, reviewing and recapping Tiny Table Talk. I'm also going to be doing some throwback shows, watching some old reality TV. Going to be doing some commentary videos on some old MTV like dating shows because those are my favorite. And now that they're on Paramount Plus, I just love watching them. I just can't get enough of trash TV. I used to watch it when I was younger. Come home, watch Parental Control next, and you're just like watching this now going like, this is so entertaining, but this makes no sense whatsoever. So I'm gonna be doing that along with tons and tons of reality. I mean, tons and tons of challenge content too. Every single week I'll be doing a challenge video no matter what. Even when All Stars is done, I'm going to be doing challenge content because I love watching the challenge and I can't stop making videos. So every Tuesday I'll be putting out a challenge video as well. So I'm just going to be doing a lot of stuff, diversifying, trying to get a lot out there and see what everybody thinks about it and just try something new. I've been doing a lot of the same thing. I mean, after doing 21 weeks of reviews, recaps, Tiny Table Talks, and then the last 6 weeks doing 2 review and recaps in one day has been really draining and tough sometimes. So I'm just excited to try new stuff, try other stuff while also learning more and making more on the challenge and waiting for new TV shows to come up like Survivor, like Big Brother, like The Challenge season 37. So I'm actually very excited to have this off season, but you never know. It's always the unknown. It's like once it's season's over, you're like, oh, what do I do now? I need to go back into a cocoon, but I can't stop. I have to keep going. So it's exciting.
I'm going to go trashy TV and do The Hills. I think that's what I might fill in with The Hills, the season 2 of like 10 years later. I might cover that one on my channel. So sticking in the MTV world, but for trashy TV, yeah, that's probably at the top.
Well, especially when I'm like looking at Kristen Cavallari and going like, well, I don't have Very Cavallari and Jay Cutler in my life anymore. Like, I guess I got to watch The Hills beginning.
She's coming back on it, though. You know that she's coming back, though. You saw the walking onto the show, so there's going to be a little bit of Kristen back. So we'll get a little bit of her.
Yeah, I'm going to miss Jay, to be fair.
Now, for anyone who does not know who Drew is, which I'm sure you haven't lived under a rock for the last couple of years since he started his channel, Angelcake, go and check him out on YouTube. He does great, about 15, 16 minute to 20-minute videos in general for the challenge. So it's really well done. It's well produced by him. I think he's a one-man army at the moment when he puts everything together, which is pretty impressive. And I would never be able to tell that you're doing so many hours because, you know, you've got great energy in every single one of those videos when you put them out. And we can see that you're passionate about what you're doing. So if you like the challenge content, go and check that out on his channel. We will be back next week again, myself and Chantel, to talk about the next episode of the Challenge All-Stars. Chantel, I believe you've just finished Big Brother Canada. It just finished this week, right?
Yes, it finished last night. It was actually a pretty amazing season. And I really hope that the US version will take some clues and some hints as to like what really worked with Big Brother Canada. Huge diverse cast. The first Black man has won the show. The final 2 are 2 Black men, and one being the person that identifies as LGBTQ. And so it definitely was a groundbreaking season with a lot of just really amazing characters with a deserving winner. So it was definitely great. We will be doing some on the block, doing some, I think I'm going to do some analysis of the different games for every season. So starting back over at season 2, I think we're going to start looking at the evolution of games within Big Brother. And so I think that that's what we do between now and Big Brother US starting in, I'm assuming, July or end of June. So that's what's going on with me and on the block.
Nice. Now, we also have our first Survivor content coming back to us. We've got a first Survivor show that is actually going to show since we've gone into the long hiatus for Survivor, and it's going to be Survivor South Africa, Immunity Island. That is going to be starting on the 3rd of June, and as you may or may not know, I cover all of the international Survivor on Reality Pop, so we will have our first draft pick and cast assessment, which is way too early, to be honest, to make any judgment call on these players. players because we only have their bio and we've got about a minute of them talking on a video. So I look forward to having egg on my face by the end of the season when I call everything incorrectly and don't select the winner as one of my first draft picks. But that's kind of part of the fun. So we will be doing that draft pick within the next hour and a half, myself and Riley, my co-host. Like always, guys, there's a lot happening on Reality Pop, a lot of content coming your way. So if you do like this, please hit the subscribe button, click on the notification bell, and you will be notified when we go live next time. Thanks for listening to it, guys. Drew, thank you for being on the show. It was great to have you as a guest. You brought a lot to the show. And Chantel, as always, I'll see you next week.
Ciao.
See ya.